I hope everybody enjoyed that intro. I did something new. Leave some feedback down in the comments below. Did you think it was too long? Do you like it better when I just cut right to the chase? Let me know. But today we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite top-tier aircraft, the JA-37C Viggen. This plane was an absolute monster on release, which was a pretty good long while ago by now, but it's still not a terrible fighter. In fact, in my recent top 5 video, I didn't even have it on my top 5 list, and some people asked where it would be in the comments, and I said somewhere between like 6 to 8. And I think I'm going to backpedal on that a little bit, and I'm going to explain why. It's really because I saddled up in the Viggen again quite recently, and I realized that it is exactly how I like playing my F5, just a little worse at doing it in exchange for more versatile weapon loadout. And versatile in quotations, because for me, a gun is a huge thing. Having top tier in the Viggen's gun, I can't aim for the life of me. I don't know where I'm shooting. I don't know how to fix it because Gaijin, for some reason, doesn't give the Viggen any tracers whatsoever, not even in test flight, which I think is absolutely stupid. I don't know how I'm supposed to get better if I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Nonetheless, that's pretty much the reason why I end up missing a lot of gunshots in the Viggen. The AIM-9Js, definitely not the best top tier missiles by any means in my opinion, but they do work. And the Sky Flashes, well, they've been better, but once again, they absolutely can work. The main thing about the Viggen, though, that I come to realize when I got back into it is just the overall survivability of the plane, the high-speed energy retention. Not the most amount of countermeasures, but, you know, there is a good amount there. Most games, you're probably not going to be running out of them unless you're really unlucky and have a lot of people shooting at you. But all that in combination with each other, you can play it as an aggressive, impact, game-changing plane, similar to how I kind of explained the F5E in my top 5 video. And I'm going to go over what I like to do to actually try to get dirty and make those game-changing plays later in the video. But for now, I'm going to talk about the first thing here, and that's the AIM-7F and the Sky Flash. If you're going to go in a head-on with an F4J and the AIM-7F, well, just don't. My team here in a really bad spot. I have to be hyper-aggressive to try to change the game, and the only reason I get this kill is because I take that head-on within 3 kilometers, and I'm going to do the same thing in this clip. But basically, the AIM-7F is still not the best head-on missile in a within 3 kilometer launch range. The Sky Flash is definitely going to win that head-on, but that's pretty much where it stops. Anything outside of that range, and you are very likely going to die to an AIM-7F, and really, you probably just shouldn't even try to launch your own missile at that point. I take it back, this is not a sub 3 kilometer launch, but if you do find yourself in a situation where you just don't have much of a choice, I was really not expecting this to be an F4J. Well, I was just hoping it wasn't an F4J. Turned out to be an F4J, and I did the only thing that I know defeats the AIM-7F in a head-on, and that's that crank and then a hard pull once it's within about 3 to 4 kilometers away. You pull back into the opposite direction while pitching preferably down, but obviously I did not have enough room to go down there, so I just had to go up. That probably would have killed me in most situations, so I don't recommend that maneuver unless you do it in the inverse, and what I mean by inverse is pitch down instead of up. But obviously the ground was there. A7D, I'm not sure what happened to that pulse Doppler launch there. It almost looked like my missile ended up getting locked, or my radar ended up getting locked onto chaff or something like that, despite being in pulse Doppler. Maybe if you guys have any input on what happened there, leave it down in the comment. I'm definitely curious about it. But here we have an F4EJ Kai, and he's shooting missiles at me rear aspect, so I'm pretty sure they're AIM-9Js because the E2 simply would not be tracking me. Shoot a few flares, it takes a couple of them to actually fool the AIM-9J just given the aspect of his shot. They're not R60s, they're not super easily one-flared in the rear aspect, but you know, you are going to have to pull a little bit if you want to one-flare that AIM-9J. You can't just fly in a straight line while you've got that rear aspect launch coming in. But we do burn some missiles here. He comes in a little bit closer. I wanted to bring him in a little close so I could get him into a dogfight. This is an EJ Kai. He does not have Agile Eagle, and therefore I'm able to just kind of fly circles around him into the dogfight. I do want to point out before we get too far in the video, people think the Viggen is some kind of absurd dogfighter. Some people say like top 3 best dogfighters in the game, and that's just not true. It's true in some cases, sure, but in a sustained endurance dogfight where you're in a turn fight that's lasting any longer than say 30 seconds, a minute long, you're probably not going to fare too well against most aircraft. I'm talking about planes like the J-7E, the MiG-23 MLD, hell, even a MiG-23 M, and what's it called? Why am I blanking right now? The F-5E, that's what I was trying to say. Those planes are definitely going to wipe the floor with you in a dogfight, but of course the Viggen can out-sustain dogfight a lot of the fellow Delta Wing design planes. I'm talking about things like the MiG-21 BIS, the Mirages if they're unlucky enough to meet you in an up tier or something like that, and maybe the Fear, but the Fear's just got so much engine power. Yeah, it bleeds speed harder than the Viggen, but the engine power combined with the AOA, you're going to have to try really, really hard to bleed that plane's speed, and most of the time you're just not going to be able to before it actually kills you, so I'm not quite sure about that one. I will say the F4E is a pretty good competitor for a Viggen in a dogfight, because that Agile Eagle can kind of do everything that you like to do. The high speed, high angle of attack turns, the one circle type of turns where you're just kind of doing a rolling scissors or something like that. I'm not quite sure which one is going to be better in the sustained fight. It's probably going to depend entirely on fuel load, but it is important to keep in mind that the Viggen's low speed handling is absolutely piss poor. In stall maneuvers, you have to be very careful, because especially with your landing flaps down, you're going to lose control of your plane quite easily. So really, all I'm trying to say is, if you're going to get into any kind of turn fight, try to keep it a high speed fight. The Viggen excels at high speeds, and really medium speeds too. It's only when it starts to bleed its energy at really low speeds, the Delta Wing design, when you're holding S, it's just not going to let you get speed back. It's going to be pulling too much angle of attack, and it's going to be pretty easy for something like, again, an F5E to really bleed your speed and work on you with. This is what I was talking about with being really aggressive in the Viggen and trying to make game-changing plays. What I like to do is oftentimes not really climb at all. Even though sometimes I will climb, I honestly fly straight at the enemy team, and in most planes that is absolutely suicide. Why are you doing that? Well, again, the Viggen is just so reliable that I'm confident I can fly straight at the enemy team, fire a missile or two at them, and then I do want them to all follow me around. And essentially what I do is I drag them wherever I want them to go, and I kind of get to choose where the furball is going to be for my team. The Viggen has great speed on the deck. It tops out at like Mach 1.18 or something like that on the deck. It's pretty damn fast, and it will get there. And it's also really high at altitude as well, but the high speed energy retention is going to help you out a lot too, because if people are attacking you, you can kind of evade incoming fire and not actually get too slow to where they start catching you. If they do start catching you, you can always just start flying back toward your team, but usually I like to kind of drag the enemy team off to the side after I rush straight at them, maybe take a guy or two down with a sky flash, and then again, as I was saying, I like to just kind of set all of the guys up that have been chasing me nice and neatly for my team to come in and just start like lighting them up with pulse Doppler, Fox 2s, whatever it may be. Usually when a team is focused on one guy, it never ends that well. And with a plane like the F5 and like the Viggen, with that high speed energy retention, good top speed from the Viggen, and good amount of countermeasures, you can just keep yourself alive long enough to really do some damage without actually doing real damage, if that makes sense, to the enemy team. You can kind of just set them up for disaster. That's exactly what I like doing with the Viggen, and that's what I've done in this clip. And at this point, I'm just kind of cleaning up kills that my teammates haven't got to yet, and it's also what we're going to be doing in the next game. You can see I am on the Korea map, and the great thing about Korea is there's plenty of terrain, there's a lot of mountains, you can kind of avoid being seen on radar, and that allows me to get nice up close and personal with some of these targets. Now you see I've spotted a lot of people, but I'm going to go for the high altitude targets solely because it's going to be an easier missile shot. I am glancing to my right at all of those other targets I've spotted, looking for incoming missiles. It turns out there is a 23 MLD that has taken interest in me, which is to be expected when somebody's rushing right at the enemy team. But as long as I just keep an eye out for his incoming missiles, it's an R60, all it takes is a flare or two, and that's not going to hit me, whereas my Skyflash does meet its target. Unfortunately, it just turned out to be an Su-22, so not the biggest kill there, but regardless, I have created a little bit of chaos right at the throat of the enemy team, and they're going to struggle figuring out how to deal with it. You see a lot of enemies have turned their attention toward my direction. They've shot a lot of missiles at me, and that kind of gives my team plenty of time to set up, plan attacks, position themselves accordingly, and definitely helps with target prioritization. You know what I'm trying to say. And really just the main thing I'm trying to demonstrate here is just how good the Viggen is at being hyper aggressive, getting into the dirtiest part of the game, and trying to make the game-changing impactful plays. Whether that means you get a kill out of it or not, that's not necessarily what's going to define the game-changing moments for you and your team. There's still plenty of people that are chasing after me right now and basically just surrendering themselves to my teammates, and they're going to pretty much fall in the exact same way. I just have to keep on dodging these missiles. I am running low on countermeasures though, so I have to keep that in mind. Because I'm running low on countermeasures, I don't want to just sit there eating up the last bit of flares I have with these missiles, so I am going to get the MLD in close. I want him to overshoot so he can't shoot at me anymore. I take a shot. I don't know how the hell to aim this gun, so I miss, of course. But at least that's one target that is no longer shooting at me, and of course I have plenty of teammates to come and help me out. Now, some of you might say I am relying on teammates here. That is not what I'm doing whatsoever. In fact, I'd say that I'm doing more for my teammates than they are for me. Even though they're the guys getting the kills, they're the ones getting the reward for it, I'm kind of just spoon-feeding them, the enemy team at this point, and that's not necessarily a result of me being good or anything in particular. It's more that the playstyle I'm using, the playstyle that the Viggen is really good at using due to its great survivability and really quite a jack-of-all-trades arsenal, it really allows the plane to just bait the entire enemy team low, if you will. That's an old one. But of course, when you have fantastic flight performance and a pretty well balanced arsenal, you can just grab the reins of the match and start getting all of the kills yourself if you really have to. Switching gears here to something a little bit more conventional for the average Andy, I am at high altitude and I like playing the Viggen aggressive and, just rushing low altitude, try to set targets up for my team, and I do have a very successful win rate when I do that tactic. I have a very small sample size from when I was keeping track, but it was something like 8 out of 10 matches were actually wins when I did that tactic. Of course, I do get plenty of wins when I just play conventionally too. You see me here at high altitude using the pulse Doppler capabilities with that sky flash, and it's still a devastating weapon combination if the targets don't see you getting launched or don't care enough, don't realize, whatever it may be. Unfortunately though, as I've said before, the Skyflash has seen better days, and why that missile just missed right there is beyond me. It's really, that's a missile launch that would not have missed in the pre-nerf Skyflash, but it is what it is, and you're just gonna have to make it work on the Viggen. I am getting chased down by an F4EJ who seems to really be dead set on taking me out. Not sure why, but if that's the way he wants to play, then that's the way he wants to play. I'm just gonna fly away, and if he wants to chase me, then that gives me enough room to take him into a 1 versus 1. I don't want to get into a 1 versus 1, but if I have to get into a 1 versus 1, I'm going to try to put some distance between me and the rest of his team so that I can do so accordingly. The EJ is absolutely no threat to a Viggen in a 1 versus 1. My main concern here is being third-partied. I have drug him out pretty far away from the rest of the battle, so at this point I'm pretty confident. If there is somebody that's going to come third party me, I'll probably have enough time to react and disengage this F4EJ. He does want to turn fight me for some reason, which is not what you want to be doing in the EJ. He is going to cut it close, but he just doesn't have the flight performance to keep up. He realizes it, tries to dip out, and it's just not going to be in time. I've got the landing flaps out, but that's kind of going to make me flip the opposite way, so I'm going to go ahead, roll my plane around, and then put the landing flaps back down. I have locked them up on radar here, just so that when my missile is finally within the parameters, I guess, of getting a lock, the seeker head is going to snap right up onto him, and I don't have to manually position that seeker. It saves me time, it saves me a launch window, and when you're at those close ranges with the AIM-9J, it's definitely something useful to have. Before some asshole in the comments corrects me and says it's an AIM-9P, whatever the hell it is, I don't care. It's an AIM-9J. They perform the exact same way in the game. I'm going to call it an AIM-9J. The AIM-9J, not the best missile. If you launch within about a kilometer, depending on the particular scenario, it's probably not going to hit. It's a pretty easy missile to pull away from in a sub 1 kilometer launch, unless of course you're situated right behind somebody. But even then, you know, if they really know what they're doing, they're not going to have too much of a trouble avoiding that. Just going back to the gameplay real quick, I don't know what these guys are doing. They're all stalling out, trying to shoot at some teammate, I guess, that's also probably climbing. Regardless, they're not checking their 6, and it's moments like that you definitely have to capitalize on in top tier, because they are going to happen almost every game. You just have to be in the correct position, be in the right place at the right time to actually make use out of it, and if you see something like that, you absolutely have to take it. Teammates are going to actually, Lee, thanks buddy, he gets one of the F-104s off me. Saved me, if you will, and that allows us to take this MiG-23 into a 1 versus 1 here. Not that he was ever really a threat, considering it's an MF player. He probably has never played top tier before besides the MF. Maybe he has. If you're out there and you've been offended by that, I apologize. I'm stereotyping. Once again, absolutely struggling to get any kind of shots on target here. I have no idea where my shots are going. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be aiming, and quite frankly, I just never will unless I take this plane into an extensive amount of custom battles and just repeat a bunch of scenarios until I figure out where the gun's going. I'm obviously not going to do that. I would really appreciate it if the Viggen got some kind of practice tracers in test flight or something like that, but it's not going to happen. Once again, I'm going to kind of do the same strategy here, but not quite. It ends up not going perfectly to plan. You can see my missile there just did not connect. He ended up notching me pretty easily, or maybe, no, he just crashed into the ground, I'm sorry. But either way, I don't get a kill for that. Kind of sad, but it is what it is. He's crashed, and my teammates have cleaned up that F5. So I initially just kind of rushed into the combat, but my team is doing such a fantastic job at killing everybody. I'm not really setting anybody up at this point. So at this point in the match, I'm just going to go ahead and go after whoever I think is going to be an easy target. And considering the F5 is the only target I currently see, that's who it's going to be. And it looks like he might be going after bases, which is a huge mistake in top tier. If you're flying a fighter, don't go after bombing bases. Now that he has dropped his ordnance, though, he's probably looking around. He's probably noticed me. And I'm also going to look around just in case there's anybody doing exactly what I'm doing to this F5 to me. And the F5 clearly has noticed me. He's starting to maneuver here. I get a lock, but it's just not quite pulling enough to get on target. And once again, pre-nerf Sky Flash, that would have definitely hit him right there and he'd be dead. It's just the unfortunate state of the missiles, but you know, we're just going to come back around here, slave the AIM-9J to the radar to give us a nice easy time locking, and what do you know, that misses too. He drops a couple of flares, he outpulls it, and now we're going to have to go in for guns. Teammate cleans him up before we can, and well, just missing out on a kill. You see the F4J shooting an AIM-7F. I do chaff that one in 90 degrees. If you're going to chaff and you can't pre-chaff, the only way to defend an incoming missile with chaff is a 90-degree chaff. It can be perpendicular it can be horizontal or it can be vertical. As long as your chaff is perpendicular to that radar, it will work. So you saw me chaff vertically there, and it was a vertical 90 degrees, so it did work. The AIM-7F did not track, and now he's kind of overshot. He's switched targets in attempt to not shoot himself right out in front of my nose, but doesn't seem to be paying attention too much to me anymore. Maybe he thinks he's going a lot faster than he is. Maybe he's really focusing on the targets in front of him. Either way, he doesn't react to the AIM-9Js I'm launching at him, and I do get a kill from that. I do know there are some targets off to my right, but I did see somebody on radar way over here, and I thought, well, maybe it'll end up being a fun 1 versus 1, so I'm going to lock him up here. But, you know, some of these guys are taking interest in me, so if I'm going to go for this guy, I want to ideally eliminate him very quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have any missiles, so I'm not quite sure how I planned on doing that. So at this point, I just kind of have the guy locked up in front of me while I mainly am focusing on defending against these AIM-9Ds. I've completely lost awareness on whoever was in front of me, and I pretty much went full defensive. I heard the guy, and he ends up just being right there somehow. I don't know how, but whatever. And now I've got 2 guys on me, and it's an F4E, which is a pretty damn dangerous plane in the Viggen, and an F8U, which is also a pretty dangerous plane in the Viggen if you do manage to be caught up to. So I'm just going to keep flying in a straight line. I don't want the F8U to get within range of me to where he can start dogfighting me, and I'm just going to start bleeding these AIM-9Js. I'm out of countermeasures, so all I can do is kinetically evade the AIM-9J, which isn't terribly hard to do as long as you've got speed. So once again, I'm just going to keep flying away until one of these guys gets bored, and I will very comfortably take a 1 versus 1 with either of them. I just don't want the 1 versus 2. So the F8U pulls off, and that leaves me 1 versus 1 with the F4E. It's exactly what I want, and we get into a bit of a dogfight. We end up missiling him, and then the F8 comes back. We get into somewhat of a dogfight and end up getting a very lucky shot on him. A shot I usually don't hit that often because, like I said, I have no idea where my rounds are going in this plane, but I do manage to get him and finish him off, and that pretty much wins the game. If not, there's like one guy left. But quick summary of the Viggen before this video ends. Great dogfighter at high speeds, but don't get too slow. Any delta wing plane that is going at stall speeds, very slow turn fighting, it's not going to last that long. The combination of the well-rounded loadout and also the excellent high-speed maneuverability and energy retention though makes this plane one of my favorite top-tier fighters in the game, and I really did underestimate it when making the top 5 list. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Great refresher on the Viggen, and I'll see you on the next one.